Welcome to Neural Nexus Podcast, where we explore the hottest topics shaping the world. Let's dive in.
Right, so we're back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
And today we're going to be talking about the LA wildfires.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, pretty devastating stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Our source material is an AP News article from January 8th, 2025, and the title is a mouthful. Wildfires burn out of control across Los Angeles area and kill 5 as thousands flee homes.
It's a lot to take in.
It really is.
Yeah.
And, we always talk about these things from, kind of a removed perspective.
Yeah.
But we're going to try to really dive deep into, the human impact and what's really going on here. So beyond the headlines, what can we learn?
Yeah. And, I think what's so striking about this particular event is that when we think about wildfires, I think we often picture, remote forests, vast wilderness areas.
Right.
But this is LA we're talking about. This is hitting close to home for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And it's not just, a few trees here and there. The article talks about, swimming pools filled with soot, sports cars melted down to their tires.
It's just crazy. The images.
It really paints a picture of just utter devastation.
Hmm.
And over 1,000 structures destroyed, 70,000 people forced to evacuate.
And that number, 42 square miles burned. It's mind-boggling. It's almost the size of San Francisco.
Wow.
And it's not just homes either. They're talking about Palisades Charter High School.
Oh, wow.
Where they filmed Carrie and Teen Wolf.
Oh, yeah?
Gonfires even jumped Sunset Boulevard. So this isn't just a wildfire in the traditional sense. This is impacting the heart of LA.
Yeah, I mean, it really hits home when you think about places that you've seen in movies, places that, people have visited, landmarks.
Absolutely.
The article tells this story of Dylan Vincent, who returned to his neighborhood only to find his childhood elementary school completely burned down.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
I can't even imagine the emotional weight of that, going back to a place that holds so many memories and just seeing it, reduced to ash.
Yeah, and that's what we often forget amidst all of the statistics, right? The human toll. I mean, beyond the physical loss, think about the disruption to people's lives, the fear, the uncertainty of it all. The article quotes a woman named Jenny Gerardo, and she says, "When I opened my door, it smelled like I was living inside of a fireplace, like raining ash."
Wow.
That visceral image just really drives home the experience of those who live through this.
Absolutely. And the article talks about just how fast these fires spread. Many people barely had time to escape.
Yeah, I read about that.
There's this one account of residents fleeing on foot, carrying, dogs and babies and bags, just whatever they could grab.
It's incredible, the stories of survival.
It's really a testament to human resilience in the face of such chaos, Just incredible.
Absolutely. And to understand that speed, though, I mean, we have to look at the winds, right? Hurricane force winds, they're talking about gusts potentially over 100 miles an hour in the mountains.
It's hard to even imagine.
These Santa Ana winds, they didn't just fan the flames, they actually carried burning embers, creating this perfect storm for rapid spread. And, it makes me think back to those fires in California back in 2018.
Yeah, the campfire, was it?
Yes, that's the one. And while this current LA fire is thankfully not as deadly,
Right.
the intensity and speed, it's eerily reminiscent of those earlier events. And it makes you wonder, are we seeing a pattern here?
It's a scary thought. We typically associate wildfires with California's traditional fire season, which is, later in the year.
Right.
But these fires are happening in January.
Yeah, it's unusual.
So could this be a sign that things are changing, becoming even more unpredictable?
Well, the article mentions that Southern California has received a mere 0.1 inches of rain since May.
Wow.
That level of dryness, it just turns the entire landscape into a tinderbox,
Right.
ready to ignite at the slightest spark.
Yeah.
And, it ties directly into the larger conversation about climate change, which I know we've talked about before.
It's always a hot topic, right? But, I've always thought of climate change and wildfires as just, things are getting hotter and drier.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a part of it.
But isn't there more to it than that?
There is. There's a lot more to it. While warmer temperatures and reduced rainfall definitely contribute to the problem,
Right.
climate change also influences wind patterns. It can intensify those Santa Ana winds we were just talking about, creating this perfect conditions for these rapid, unpredictable wildfires.
So it's really a complex interplay of factors.
It really is.
And, it's not just California. Are we seeing this trend in other parts of the world as well? I mean, more intense, more unpredictable wildfires.
Unfortunately, yes. We're seeing it in Australia, the Amazon, even parts of Europe are experiencing similar trends.
This is really a global issue.
It is. It's a global issue. And it raises some crucial questions, like how do we adapt to this new reality?
Right.
Are our current infrastructure and resources even equipped to handle these increasingly frequent and severe wildfires?
It's a good question. And the LA fire really highlights this, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, think about Los Angeles's water system.
Hmm.
It's designed for, you know, daily needs, not for battling massive blazes.
Right. The article actually quotes the LA Public Works Director, Mark Pistrella, and he says they are not designed to fight wildfires.
It's a scary thought. It really highlights the vulnerability of our systems in the face of these evolving threats.
Absolutely. And it's not just the water system, right? We've got power grids that are strained,
Right.
leading to those public safety power shutoffs, the PSPS events.
Yeah, we've been hearing a lot about those.
It's controversial, right? I mean, they're intended to prevent fires caused by electrical equipment,
Right.
but they also disrupt the lives of millions. It's a delicate balancing act.
It really is. So we've covered a lot of ground here already. We've gone from these shocking images of destruction
Yeah.
to the human stories of those affected, all the way to the larger implications of climate change and infrastructure.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is. And it feels like we're just scratching the surface.
We are. And this LA fire, it's just one example of the challenges we're facing. The real question is, how do we move forward? How do we prevent these tragedies from happening? How do we build more resilient communities in a world where these fires are becoming increasingly common?
Lots of questions. Definitely a lot to think about.
Finding solutions, it has to start with understanding the problem, like really getting the full picture.
Yeah.
And it's not just about putting out fires, it's about changing how we think about them.
Okay. So you're saying that, our current ways of fighting wildfires, they're not working. I mean, we've got all this technology, right? We've got air tankers dropping water and retardant, highly trained firefighters on the ground. What more can we do?
Well, it's not that those methods aren't effective, it's just that they're reactive, right?
Yeah.
We're always playing catch up, and these fires, they're becoming so intense, so unpredictable.
Mm.
The article even mentions how strong winds grounded those aircraft, the tankers, so they couldn't even fight the fire effectively.
Oh, wow.
It's almost like, trying to put out a bonfire with a garden hose while somebody keeps throwing gasoline on it.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
So if we can't just react, wait for the fires to start and then try to put them out, what does a more proactive approach look like?
Well, I think, for one, we need to really look at the role of forest management.
Mm.
Things like controlled burns, for example, they can be controversial,
Right.
but they can also be effective in reducing fuel loads, the stuff that burns. It's like clearing out the underbrush before a fire can even take hold.
That makes sense. But I've heard some people argue that, all those years of putting out every single fire suppression, they say that's actually made these recent wildfires even worse.
Yeah, that's definitely a debate in the scientific community.
Hmm.
Some argue that by suppressing all fires, we've actually allowed our forests to become denser, more overgrown. And that creates perfect conditions for those megafires. It's like holding back a river with the dam. Eventually the pressure builds, and then boom, you have a massive uncontrolled release.
Okay, so it's a complex issue, no easy answers.
Yeah.
But you're saying if we shift our focus from just suppression to a more holistic approach,
Yeah.
like including controlled burns, reducing fuel loads, could that actually help mitigate some of these risks?
Potentially, yes. But it requires a change in our mindset, right? Recognizing that fire, it's a natural part of many ecosystems.
Right.
It's about managing it, not trying to eliminate it completely. And that brings us back to climate change again, right?
Right.
I mean, if warmer temperatures and drier conditions and those intense winds, if those are fueling these megafires, are there any solutions, beyond just tackling the root cause of climate change?
It feels like a huge problem, right?
It is. But there are things we can do. We can start by adapting our communities to this new reality, for example, by changing building codes.
Yeah.
Prioritize fire-resistant materials. Imagine if homes were built with materials that could actually withstand those higher temperatures and embers.
Right. It's like, building houses out of brick instead of straw.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that be super expensive? I mean, to change all that.
It's an investment, for sure. But then think about the cost of rebuilding entire communities after a fire like this one in LA.
Right. Yeah.
It goes beyond the immediate damage, right? Businesses are destroyed, jobs are lost, tourism suffers.
Yeah. The article actually mentions this place, the Real Inn. It's a seafood restaurant in Malibu,
Yeah.
and they're hoping to rebuild after being destroyed by the fire.
Exactly. And it highlights the impact on these small businesses, which are the backbone of so many communities.
It's heartbreaking. And it's not just about physical structures either, right? Think about tourism. The image of LA, the beaches, Hollywood, that's all overshadowed now by these images of smoke and ash.
Right. It's a big blow to the city's image.
And speaking of far-reaching consequences, the article mentions, and this really struck me, over 1.5 million people could face power shutoffs because of these fire risks.
Yeah, those PSPS events.
Right.
They're a double-edged sword, right? On one hand, they're trying to prevent fires caused by electrical equipment. But on the other hand, they disrupt lives. They have huge economic impacts.
Yeah, it's like imagine being a business owner and having to shut down because the power's out.
Exactly. Or a family without electricity during a heat wave.
It's a tough situation, right? It's like we need to prevent fires, but we also can't just cripple communities with these constant power outages.
It highlights the need for more innovative solutions,
Yeah.
like investing in those more resilient power grids that can handle those high winds and dry conditions.
Yeah.
Or maybe exploring those decentralized energy sources, things like rooftop solar panels that can provide power even when the main grid is down.
It's not just about adapting our communities to the threat of wildfires. It's about rethinking our entire infrastructure.
Precisely. And it's going to take a collective effort. Policymakers, scientists, engineers, community leaders, individuals, everybody has to work together. And, there's something else in the article that I thought was interesting. The LA Fire Department, they actually had to call for help, not just from off-duty firefighters, but from other states, too.
Wow.
It just shows the scale of this disaster and how much we need to cooperate.
Yeah, we can't do it alone.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
speaks to the importance of shared resources, expertise. We're facing a global challenge. It doesn't stop at borders.
Right.
Sharing best practices, new technologies, supporting each other, those are all crucial elements to building a more resilient future.
It's a good reminder that we're all in this together. And it's not just about technology, right? It's about changing our behavior, our attitudes, our relationship with the environment.
Absolutely. Even small actions can make a difference,
Like what?
like clearing brush around your home, being mindful of fire safety, supporting policies that address climate change. Those things can add up.
Wow. This deep dive has really been eye-opening. We've talked about so much, the devastation, the human impact, all those complex factors, climate change, the challenges, but also some potential solutions. It's a lot to process, but I feel like I have a much deeper understanding now.
Yeah, and that's what we're aiming for, right? Taking a complex topic, breaking it down, exploring it from different angles so you, the listener, you walk away feeling more informed and hopefully empowered.
And maybe a little inspired to take action.
I hope so. Because, like we've seen, these fires, they're not just a California problem, they're a global challenge. And it's going to take all of us working together to find solutions.
Well said. So where do we go from here? We've explored the causes, the impacts, the challenges, and some potential solutions. Is there anything else in this article that we should highlight for our listeners?
There's one more point that I think ties everything together. The article mentions that this Palisades fire, it's actually the most destructive fire in LA's modern history. Even worse than the Sayre fire back in 2008, it's actually the most destructive fire in LA's modern history. Wow.
Even worse than the Sayre fire back in 2008.
Yeah, that's pretty sobering. I mean, we've talked about the scale, the thousands of structures destroyed, but putting it in historical context, it really just amplifies the severity of this.
And it's not just about the numbers, it's the trend they represent. We've touched on climate change.
Yeah.
But, we also need to consider how urban development, how we're building our cities, has actually contributed to this growing risk.
Okay, I'm listening.
As cities expand into these wildland areas, we're creating more and more opportunities for these devastating interfaces between where people live and these fire-prone landscapes.
So it's not just about the fires themselves. It's about, how we're building, how we're expanding into these areas that are inherently, vulnerable.
Exactly. And it raises some tough questions about, urban planning. How do we balance the need for housing, for growth, with the need to protect our communities from these increasingly severe wildfires?
Right. Because we can't just keep doing things the same way, right? We need to be smarter, more forward-thinking. Absolutely. We need to be thinking about fire-resistant building materials, creating defensible spaces around homes, incorporating fire-wise landscaping. It's about building communities that are not only resilient to fire, but can coexist with it.
Yeah, it sounds like a massive undertaking. But is there anything, anything that individuals can do, to contribute to these efforts?
Absolutely. Even small actions can make a difference.
Like what? Give me an example.
Clearing brush and debris from around your home, choosing fire-resistant plants for your landscaping, being mindful of fire safety practices, simple things.
Right.
These are all things that individuals can do to reduce their risk and help protect their property.
I like that. It's empowering to know that, we're not just passive victims. We can actually take steps to protect ourselves and our communities.
Exactly. And beyond individual actions, there's also the power of collective action, right?
Hmm.
Supporting policies that address climate change, advocating for smarter urban planning, getting involved in community wildfire prevention programs, those things matter.
So working together, making our voices heard.
Yeah, it all adds up.
This deep dive has been incredible. We've
Yeah.
covered so much: the devastation, the human impact, the complex factors involved, climate change, the challenges, but we've also talked about some potential solutions.
It's a lot to take in, but I feel like I have a much deeper understanding of this issue now.
Yeah, and that's really the goal, right? To take a complex topic, break it down, explore it from all angles so you, the listener, you can walk away feeling more informed and hopefully a little bit more empowered.
And maybe even inspired to take action.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because as we've seen, these fires are not just a California problem, they're a global challenge, and it's going to take all of us working together to create a better future.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the LA wildfires, we'll leave you with this thought. If climate change is extending wildfire seasons, intensifying these events, what role can we play, both individually and collectively, in building a more fire-resilient future? It's a question worth pondering and hopefully one that will inspire action. Absolutely. It's about coming together, using our ingenuity and our collective will to create a world where we can live in harmony with nature's power, not in fear of it.
Well said. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.